Mm. Hello, good day. I am Romelito Manuel Clorina. You can just call me Rome. I graduated BS Psychology at the University of Santo Tomas last 2017. And at the same year, I took the board exam. I am a registered psychometrician. Currently, I'm finishing my MA in clinical psychology at the University of Santo Tomas as well. Now, what I will be talking about or lectures natin would be theories of personality. And I've selected theories that I believe are high yield. So, yung reference ko focused or I used heavily yung FICE. No? But at the same time, I had supplemental resources, particularly Schultz. Because there are some theorists na wala na kay FICE. No? Hindi niya na sinama. Particularly sa mga new editions ng kay FICE. So, for this video, we will talk about a brief introduction to theories of personality. And then we would continue discussing the first few psychodynamic theories, particularly kay Freud, Adler, and Hume. Okay, so if you feel like during the video na medyo mabilis yung discussion natin, feel free to pause the video so that you could take down notes from the PowerPoint and then continue na lang and listen to my discussion afterwards. So I'll try to make it simple and light and focus more on giving examples and contextualizing the terms and concepts, no, rather than just simply giving the definition. Okay, so let's get started. The theories of personality, a brief introduction lang. Ano ba yung personality? So what do we mean when we say personality? Personality came from the Latin word persona, which means theatrical mask. Kasi noong unang panahon, hindi pa naman uso yung mga projectors at saka LCD, ano? So, ang ginagawa ng mga actors noon is they wear masks to depict and portray the emotion or the character na they're trying to show the audience. So, may kanya-kanyang definition ng personality for each theorist. But generally, ang definition of personality, or when we say personality, this refers to a pattern of relatively permanent traits and unique characteristics that give both consistency and individuality to a person's behavior. It is relatively permanent, meaning more or less yun na yun. But there are chances na pwede pang mabago. It gives consistency and individuality to a person's behavior. Kung magpapakilala ka ng friend mo sa another person, you already have an idea of how to describe and introduce your friend. For example, siya nga pala si ganito, madaldal, makulit, kwela, chismosa. That's the personality of your friend, and those characteristics give identity and individuality to that friend of yours. So that's what we call, or that's what we refer to as personality. And later on, as we go deeper with our discussion of the different personality theories, makikita pa natin yung iba't ibang definitions ng personality, particularly when we discuss Allport. So there are many determinants of personality. So proposed determinant. First, andyan na yung genes natin. Siyempre, yung namamana nating ugali sa magulang natin. Next would be traits. So some traits are innate or genetically determined, while others pwede nating matutunan. Culture and society, kung saan tayo lumaki. Now, culture plays a big role in shaping a person's personality. Kaya nga, di ba, we have the collectivist society or culture rather, and the collectivist and individualistic cultures. learning. So yung mga experiences natin and consequences natin, we are what we are rewarded in learning. So this is applicable specifically for learning theories, cognitive processes, kung paano natin na-perceive, pinrocess, and if na-retain ba yung information natin, or yung information rather. Personal choice. We are responsible for the type of person we become. So, sa determinant na to, sinasabi na we can choose to be who we are, or rather, we choose to be who we are. And for the unconscious mechanisms, we have the depth theorist. No? Yun yung mga psychoanalytic, psychodynamic na naniniwala na yung personality natin or behavior originates from the childhood, and that yung personality natin is heavily influenced by unconscious motives. So discover the underlying causes of behavior through the unconscious. Now we can, yung iba't ibang theories, may kanya-kanyang perspective yan in humanity. And we can view the theories in different lenses. Particularly for the first one, we have determinism versus free choice. So, is our behavior caused by preceding factors? So, preset na ba? Meron na, that predetermined na ba kung ano at kung sino tayo magiging based on previous experiences? Or is it, may choice ba tayo? Do we have the capability to shape our own future and ourselves? No? For those theorists na nagre-rely sa deterministic or highly determinism, or sa determinism nagre-rely, no? More or less it would be pessimistic in nature. And same is true for the other. For free choice, it's more of optimism. Causality versus teleology. Is our personality and behavior a function of past experiences? Or is it because we're working towards a future goal? Lahat ba ng ginagawa natin, is it to achieve a goal, or is it because it has purpose? That's teleology. Future. Conscious versus unconscious, no? Aware ba tayo or are we not aware? Biological versus social influences. This is your nature versus nurture debate. Uniqueness versus similarity is the theory focusing on the commonalities of how an individual, or rather the similarities of an individual with others, or is it more focused on the uniqueness or the individual differences? Bakit ba ang daming theories? Simply because maraming theorists. And yung mga theorists na yan, may kanya-kanya silang experiences, no, personal opinions, backgrounds, etc., that influence how they develop the theory. Now, you might be tempted when reading the book and reviewing na skipan nyo yung biography. I highly recommend that you read the biography. You don't have to memorize lahat ng nangyari, lahat ng dates. You don't have to, that's information overload already. You just have to know the experiences, the significant experiences in the life of the theorist, so that you could have a good grasp of what the theorist is trying to say in his or her theory. Why? Because they are simply projecting their experiences and their point of views sa theory nila. So if you know the theorist, you know the life of the theorist, more or less you could easily understand what the theorist is trying to say in their theory. Now, psychology of science, ito lang yung study of scientific thought and behavior of the scientists. So yung personality and psychology ng iba't ibang mga theorists and kung paano yun nag-influence sa paggawa nila ng theory. Okay. So that's it for a quick introduction. Let's move on now to the psychodynamic theories. Note, there's a big there's a difference between psychodynamic theories and psychoanalytic theory. Pag sinabi mong psychoanalytic theory, that is Freud's theory. When you say psychodynamic, ito na yung mga other theories that are influenced by psychoanalytic theory of Freud. Okay. Another thing to note pa pala, you might get too caught up memorizing and understanding the different concepts of the different theories that you forget the name of the theory itself. That's a big no. Please don't do that. Alamin nyo kung ano yung pangalan ng theory because as simple as it may appear, baka mamaya yun pa yung makalimutan mo. Alam mo kung paano explain yung theory pero hindi mo alam kung ano yung tawag. No? Okay. Psychoanalysis or psychoanalytic theory of Freud. Very quick biography lang. He has a very indulgent mother. Yung may older sibling siya pero malayo na yung step siblings. Pero malayo na yung age gap nila. So very pampered and focused yung nanay niya sa kanya. And later on, nagkaroon ng pangalawang anak, yung mother, and he wished that that kid, his little brother, would die. And after 6 months, namatay nga. Now, if you were in that shoes, magkakaroon ng big impact yun sa development mo as a person. Okay. The other thing that you have to remember is these two people, Charcot and Brewer. Para matandaan nyo kung ano yung influence and relationship nila with Freud, ganito lang. CHHH. Charcot. Sa kanya niya natutunan yung hypnotic technique for treating hysteria. For Brewer, that's Anna O. Anna O was a former patient, or rather a patient of Brewer na pinirata ni Freud, no? Or kinonvince ni Freud si Brewer na mag-collaborate sila in publishing a case study. No? And they use catharsis. No? Catharsis is the process of removing hysterical symptoms through talking them out. So ABC, Anna O, Brewer, catharsis. For Charcot, CHHH. Charcot, hypnotic techniques to treat hysteria. Moving on with catharsis, he later on discovered free association technique, which should be differentiated with the word association of Jung. Okay? Levels of the mind. Levels of the mind should not be confused with the provinces of the mind. So levels of the mind, andito yang unconscious, preconscious, and the conscious. So when we say unconscious, andito yang yan, dyan nagpo-focus si Jung. No? Andyan daw lahat ng mga drives, urges, or instincts. That is not, or rather, that's not in our awareness. Hindi tayo aware, but still affects or motivates behavior, even if those impulses and urge are at the unconscious level, no? Hindi tayo aware, it still contributes to how we behave. Now, paano ba napupunta yung mga bagay-bagay na yan sa unconscious? First is through punishment and suppression. So, for example, nung bata daw, the infant would perform masturbatory actions, tapos papagalitan, and knowing that masama yun, the child now would try to suppress that behavior, that urge. So there's a conscious effort to prevent himself from doing that again, which later on now leads that kid to repress that urge. What's the difference between suppression and repression? Simply, suppression is the conscious effort, repression is unconscious. Dito din sa unconscious yung phylogenetic endowment, yung inherited dispositions. So, this is similar to Jung's concept of collective unconscious. The main difference is that kay Jung, big part yung collective unconscious sa kanyang theory. Kay Freud, ito yung naging trash bin niya sa mga bagay na hindi niya ma-explain. So the pre-conscious naman, ito yung mga nasa dulo ng dila natin. Tip of the tongue. So this would be elements that are not conscious, but not entirely unconscious din naman. And could be quite readily pick up. No? Kaya mong siyang mag-retrieve with some level of difficulty. The conscious, minor role lang for psychoanalytic theory. These would be things or elements that we are aware of at any given point in time. Provinces of the mind. Dito na yung id, ego, and superego. So the id, das es, or it, has no contact with reality and strives to constantly reduce tension by satisfying basic desires. And it operates in the pleasure principle. So it is illogical, chaotic, amoral, and filled with energy. Amoral meaning it has no sense of what's right and what's wrong. And the primary process. So ano ba yung primary process? Primary process is, for example, you get hungry. It's an urge, yung drive mo, nagutom. And you want, so what do? You think of food. Kunyari, nakaisip ka ng burger, hamburger. That's the primary process. There's the urge, and your id would come up with an idea, yung naisip mo, to satisfy that urge. And it relies on the ego to satisfy itself through the secondary process, which is, or ang ego yung responsible for the secondary process. Primary process, naisip mo, nagutom ka, naisip mo yung food. Secondary process is your actual action. Kung paano mo kukunin yung food na yun, kung paano mo re-resolbahan yung gutom mo. That's the secondary process. So for the ego, it is said to be the core of personality for psychoanalytic theory. Take note, ego is core of personality. Mamaya kayong mag-iiba yan, and as well as for Erikson. It is the only one with contact with reality in the external world, and it grows out of the id during infancy. And it operates at the reality principle, since it is the only one who has contact with the external world. Next would be the superego, the Das Übrig and Over-I. Excuse me. So this is the moral and ideal aspect of personality and operates at the moralistic and idealistic principles. So again, it grows out of the ego and has no energy of its own. So it's only the id who has energy. It has no contact with the outside world, and it has two parts actually. The conscience versus the ego ideal. To simply put this two things, no, conscience would be what you shouldn't do, and ego ideal would be the things that you should do. Now, people are motivated to seek pleasure and to reduce tension. We actually need tension in our lives because in reducing tension, we derive pleasure. So a tension-free state is not ideal. Kailangan mo ng konting stress sa buhay. Kasi doon ka nakakapag-derive ng pleasure. Pansinin nyo, pag natatay kayo, ano yung mas pleasurable? Yung pag na-feel mo na natatay ka, tapos nag-CR ka na? O yung pag pinigil mo pa ng slight, no? Yung tipong sasabog na doon ka lang nag-CR. Diba? Mas malakas yung mo pagkatapos when you try to hold it in and afterwards, boom. Okay. Now, for the drives. So, drives are trieb, those stimulus within the person, and it is characterized by this four, the isaw. Remember isaw? The impetus, source, aim, and object. So, the impetus would be the amount of force it exerts. The source would be the region of the body in a state of excitation or tension, kung saan nararamdaman yung tension sa katawan. The aim would be, ano ba yung goal? basically to reduce tension. The object would be what would satisfy the aim. Now let's contextualize, no? I'll give an example. For example, naiihi ka. Gaano ka kaihing-ihi? That's the impetus. The source would be yung pantog mo. Andun yung tension your bladder. The aim would be to release the pee. So if you pee, you're reducing tension. And then the object naman would be, let's say, a toilet or a urinal. Now, these are two things that you should know. I think it's not discussed in FAIST, but it would be good that you are familiar with this. No? Cathexis and the anticathexis. When you say cathexis, this is the emotional energy or emotional investment. Mental or emotional energy in a person, object, or idea. For example, your crush. No? Gano'n ka ba ka-obsessed, ka-infatuated sa crush mo? Gano'n mo siya mahal? Yung emotional and mental energy you spend on an object or an idea or a person. Anticathexis or your countercathexis, this is the energy you use or the energy used by the ego to bind primitive impulses of the id. Ito yung force that prevents you from acting up on your impulses, your id impulses. For example, crush mo yung crush mo. You want to satisfy your sexual drive sa crush mo. But hindi naman pwede yun, no? So the anticathexis is stopping you from acting out your id impulses. It's preventing you, no? So that's why it's called the anticathexis. Now, the two drives, according to Freud, would be your sex and aggression. Sex or eros would be the, when we talk about this, we would talk about the libido or the sex drive. The aim is pleasure, but hindi lang naman nadiderive ang pleasure sa genital satisfaction. Kaya nga tayo may tinatawag na erogenous zones. When we talk about sex or eros, and then we would also discuss primary narcissism and secondary narcissism. So, primary narcissism, that is when pagbata, infant, no, umiyak, feel nila center sila ng world. So, pag umiyak sila, makakuha nila yung gusto nila. That's primary narcissism. Secondary narcissism is, so primary narcissism pag infant, diba? And it slowly dies down or nadidiminution when energy is directed now towards others. As you grow older, you get more interested with others. So nawawala yung primary narcissism. But it may go back during puberty when you get too focused on yourself. No? Appearance mo, how you present yourself, how others view you. So yun yung secondary narcissism. You also have what we call aim-inhibited love. Ito yung nafe-feel mo towards your parents, brothers, siblings, etc. Why is it called aim-inhibited? Because the aim is inhibited. And what is the aim? It's sex. So you're inhibiting your sexual drives. We'll also, when we discuss libido, andyan din yung sadism and masochism, this would be pleasure derived from inflicting pain sa ibang tao, while masochism is deriving pleasure from inflicting pain sa self. Tandaan niyo lang, masochism. If you confuse the two, remember, masochism, sarili. Ano ba? Yan, nalito na din tuloy ako. Okay, now for aggression, this would be the destruction of Thanos. Fun fact, it's actually not Freud who used the term Thanos. It's actually, I think, one of his students. So the aim of the destructive drive is to return the organism to an inorganic state, which is death. So the final aim of aggressive drive is self-destruction. For people who are depressed, doing self-harm or suicidal, it is said that they have aggression directed towards the self. So Thanos, or the destructive drive, is acting up and it's directed towards the person or themselves. No? Anxiety. Let's first differentiate ano ba yung fear versus anxiety. When we say fear, this would be a response to a known or definite threat. In contrast with anxiety, you're not really sure what is it about. You're not, this would be a vague sense of apprehension. You're not sure kung ano yung kinakatakutan mo. Now, it is only the ego who can produce and feel anxiety, but yung id, superego, as well as the external world are involved in the three kinds of anxiety, which are the neurotic anxiety, moral, and realistic. When we say neurotic anxiety, this would be the id, originates from the id impulses. So unconscious worry that we will lose control of the id's urges, resulting in punishment for inappropriate behavior. Remember anticatexis? When you feel like your anticatexis is not enough to bind or suppress your id impulses, so that's the neurotic anxiety. And it's typically experienced in the presence of an authoritative figure. Moralistic anxiety naman stems from the conflict between the ego and the superego. So the realistic principle versus the moralistic principle. So usually by the age of 5 to 6, because of the punishment na, no, yung paano pinalaki ng magulang. The realistic principle naman is closely related to fear. It's just that, yun nga, it's not specific, no? Walang specific fearful object. Now, these three are not always clear-cut. They're not categorical in nature, and they often exist in combination. The best example I could think of would be, for example, math and test anxiety. So let's go back. So neurotic anxiety is when your math teacher comes into class and you feel anxious. So there's an authoritative figure na. The moral anxiety, the realistic anxiety is when they start passing. So realistic anxiety, they start passing the exam na, the test papers, and you start to get anxious. What is it about exactly that makes you anxious? Is it about taking the test, about failing, not being able to answer, baka mapahiya, ano ba? That's realistic anxiety. The moral anxiety naman is, for example, may kodigo ka nakita, napulot, would you take it or hindi? So the ego might say na parang this is a key for you to pass, but this would help you to pass. But the superego operating at the moralistic principle might tell you na, oh, that's bad, you shouldn't do that. Okay. So anxiety is not always bad kasi it serves as a signal that there's something wrong or that there's danger at hand. You know? So it's ego-preserving because it signals you, yourself, that there should be some adjustment to be done. It only becomes problematic pag sobra-sobra na, pag OA na yung anxiety mo. Defense mechanisms, we have the following. I hope you're already familiar with these, but just to breeze through them. No? Repression is said to be the most common of all the defense mechanisms. Oh, by the way, defense mechanism, Freud. Because others would have defense mechanisms, but iba yung tawag sa kanila. So for Adler, it is safeguarding tendencies. For Horney, protective devices. Okay. For Freud, or for the psychoanalytic theory, defense mechanisms. So repression said to be the most common because it is present in all of those. Denial, it is said na conversion disorder, familiar with your upside? Conversion disorder is brought about by overuse of denial. To the psychoanalytic perspective, no, when you explain conversion disorders, sinasabi kasi na overuse of denial, na defense mechanism. The action formation, it is, imagine, isipin niyo na lang yung classic saying na, the more you hate, the more you love. So it's the opposite. You're behaving opposite ng urge, ng kabaliktaran. Displacement naman is you're just simply passing it to another object or person. Kaya nga tinawag na displacement. The main difference between the two is that sa reaction formation, it is the same person or object, while sa displacement, sa ibang tao. For example, boss mo, galit ka, hindi mo naman pwedeng sigawan. So what you do, you try to kiss ass, you suck up, or you act pleasingly towards your boss. While for displacement, galit ka sa boss mo, imbes na ilabas mo yung sama mo ng loob sa kanya, it is displaced sa ibang object or sa ibang tao. Like for example, pag uwi mo, sinipa mo yung asa mo or sa kaibigan mo ka nagbunga nga. Fixation is when you get caught up at a particular developmental stage. While regression naman is you progress to the different stages, it's just that during anxiety-provoking situation, bumabalik ka, nagre-regress ka. So fixation, you get stuck. No? For example, hanggang ngayon, nag-thumbs up ka pa ba? Now that could also be manifested in different ways. No? For those people who are smokers or have eating disorder, binge eating, mga orally fixated. Kasi di ba later when we discuss yung stages oral, anal, phallic, so they got stuck up at a particular developmental stage. Regression naman, an example is when you cry during stressful situation. What you do is you do the fetal position. Pag umiiyak ka, it is said that you do that because it soothes you, it reminds you of the comfort and safety when you were still at the womb of your mother. Kaya nag-fetal position pag umiiyak. Projection, this is when there's a negative or unwanted impulse in you and you project it to others. So excessive use of projection may lead to paranoia. Why? For example, you have aggressive impulses and you project it to others. So ang sasabihin mo is they're out to get you. Sasaktan ka nila. And if you keep on projecting it to other people sa lahat ng situations, that could lead you to be paranoid. Sipin mo ba naman lahat ng tao would be out to get you? Interjection, on the other hand, is when there are good things about other people and you interject it sa sarili mo. Sublimation, keyword would be channeling. Channeling impulses to something that is more socially acceptable. For example, yung sexual urges mo. So instead of you sleeping around and having multiple partners, what you do is, let's say you channel it to something creative, like through art. You paint phallic symbols or vaginas, mga ganon. So that's, art is said to be more socially acceptable than you having sex with multiple partners. Intellectualization versus rationalization. What's the difference? When you say intellectualization, this is when the person is only dealing with facts, factual level lang. For example, a cancer patient would simply say na I'm at stage 4, these are the medications that I drink, these are the things that I need to do, these are what the doctors told me. Ginagawa nila to avoid dealing with the painful experience, no? Yung mga negative feelings comes along with the experience. So, yung facts lang hindi ni-discuss nila para hindi nila pag-usapan yung mga anxiety-provoking and mga heavy emotions. Kumbaga. Rationalization naman, we have sour graping, double P, yung nalagay ko. It's just single. Sour graping and silver lining. There's a difference between the two. Silver lining, tandaan niyo lang si Catriona, you're trying to find beauty in the bad thing that happened. For sour graping naman, minamasama mo yung gusto mo dating makuha pero hindi mo nakuha. So you're trying to find the bad in the things that didn't happen but you wanted to happen. For example, you applied for a job tas hindi mo nakuha. If silver lining yan, sasabihin mo na, there would be more time for myself. I could focus more on myself. For sour graping, sasabihin mo na parang stressful naman doon. Hindi ko naman talaga gusto doon. Kung nakuha pa ako doon, manlalagas lang yung buhok ko. Maiirita ako sa kanila. Basically, you're saying na hindi mo gusto doon. But deep inside, gusto mo. So you're trying to find the bad in it. For this part, kindly pause the video for a quick review and answer the following questions before I press next. Okay? If you're able to answer the following questions, we shall proceed now. So let's go with the stages of development. Some textbooks, tatlo lang. Pregenital, latency, and genital stage. So for FICE, it's infantile, latency, and genital stage. And it's broken down, particularly for the infantile stage, yung tatlo na oral, anal, and phallic, and then the latency, and then genital. So para madali niyo siyang tandaan, OA palagi. Oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital stage. So the first 4 to 5 years daw is the most important stage for Freud, or the most important years to Freud, no? So the OAP, or oral, anal, phallic, overlaps with each other. So each stage would have 2 phases. So first is the oral phase, which has the oral receptive and the oral sadistic. Pag oral receptive, ito na yung when the baby tries to incorporate everything through the mouth. So the object of choice is typically the nipples. So obviously, the erogenous zone is the mouth. The second phase is the oral sadistic period. So pag nagtitithing na yung bata, nangangagat na. So it is because tumutubo na yung ngipin nila. So they pass into a second oral phase, which is the oral sadistic period. The anal stage, the 2 to 3 years. Okay, so first would be the early anal and the late anal. So in the anal stage, ito na yung toilet training, diba? So for the early anal, it's more of the sadistic rather than the erotic. And it's frustrated because of toilet training. While for the late anal, ito na yung infants begin to have interest with their own feces. Yung minsan pag nag-poop nila, nireregalo nila sa, or binibigay nila, or pinapakita nila sa magulang nila, no? So an interest that stems from erotic pleasure of defecating. So in the anal stage, or the anal years, no, we have the anal character and the anal triad. The anal expulsive and the anal compulsive would be the anal characters. So how is it relevant to the anal stage ba? So ang anal expulsive, ito yung mga makakalat na tao. While the anal compulsive, ito yung mga obsessive compulsive, no? Ito yung mga super organized na tao. Now, these characters are developed at the anal stage. How? For the anal expulsive, it is said that when the infant is hinahayaan lang, very maluwag yung magulang during toilet training. And pag nagkakalat na habang nagpupupo, no, and then the parents are very lenient, the infant is led to believe that he is the king, no, masusunod. Then later on, he or she might develop an anal expulsive character. While for an anal compulsive naman, at pagbata daw, tapos there's little praise during toilet training and there's a very strict environment sa kanila wherein hindi sila masyado napupuri sa mga nagagawa nila. No? It is said na doon na-develop yung compulsive or retentive, anal compulsive, anal retentive. The anal triad naman would be easily recalled if you remembered OSO or OSS. Orderliness, stinginess, and obstinacy. That would be your anal triad. For the stages of development, let's continue with the phallic, the third phase of the infantile. So around 3 to 5 years. So the genital area becomes the leading erogenous zone, suppression of masturbation, and the Oedipal complex or the Oedipus complex. Note, there's a difference between the male Oedipal complex and the female Oedipal complex, and Freud actually said that it should not be referred to as Electra complex sa female Oedipal complex because that would suggest parallelism for the Electra and Oedipal complex or Oedipus complex. If you're familiar with the Greek mythology, tama ba? Yeah. So there's a difference kasi. So it should not be referred as Electra complex, but rather female Oedipal or Oedipus complex. So first, let's discuss the male Oedipus complex. Makikita niyo dito kung ganong ka-sexist si Freud. Okay. For the male Oedipus complex, nangyayari mo ng Oedipus complex wherein the infant or the boy would have sexual desires for the mother and hostility or behave aggressively towards the father. Ito lang. Want to have sex with the mother, kill the father, which is shattered by the castration complex in the form of castration anxiety. Now, they are afraid that their fathers would cut off their penis. Kaya nagkakaroon ng castration anxiety, no? So it shatters now the Oedipal complex. So instead of behaving aggressively or having hostility towards the father, they'll just try to identify with the father. Kasi nga, gusto nilang makipag-sex sa mother nila. And nakikita nila their fathers have a relationship or the fathers possess the mothers. So maybe gayahin kaya, or naisip daw ng bata na gayahin kaya, or I should identify with the father so that I could get the mother. Kumbaga, to put it very, very simply. Now, because the Oedipal complex is shattered by the castration complex through castration anxiety, napapalitan daw ng good or ng strong superego. Kaya nagkakaroon na-develop yung superego ng bata, ng boy. Compared with the female Oedipus complex, na nauuna ang castration complex in the form of penis envy. Ang nangyayari daw kasi is nakikita ng batang babae na bakit wala siyang pipi, wala siyang penis. Is it because na naputol na? No? While in the male Oedipal complex, possible na nakita nila yung vagina ng infant girl, hala, baka naputol yun sa kanila. So, baka maputol din yun sa akin. Kaya may castration anxiety. For the female Oedipal complex, nakikita nila yung penis ng infant boys. So, iniisip nila, hala, ba't ako walang ganon? Is it because naputol siya? Now, kaya nagkakaroon ng penis envy. Later on, they want to have, because of the penis envy, they want now to possess their fathers. They want to have a penis through their father. So they want to have sex with the father and then kill the mother. Behave hostile sa mother nila. So gradual realization that the Oedipal desires are self-defeating, meaning they need both the mother and the father to survive, they start now to identify with the mother, similar with what the male Oedipal complex did. No? They just identified with the opposite parent or the opposite sex parent in order to obtain your mother or your father. Because the Oedipal complex or the female Oedipal complex is not shattered by the castration complex dahil nauna ang castration complex, weak superego daw ang pumapalit sa female Oedipal complex. Okay? So see how sexist Freud was, no? Okay, continuing. Latency, this is brought about partly by parents' attempts to punish or discourage sexual activity. Sexual drive still exists during latency, but its aim has been inhibited. Sublimated libido now shows itself in social and cultural accomplishment and the phylogenetic endowment. Dito na kasi school age na to. So yung energy is now directed towards others, wherein you are more interested in other people, you try to develop your skills na at this age, no? Kaya yung sexual desires, medyo nalilimit siya. Now, meron pa din, but again, it is aim inhibited. Now, phylogenetic endowment was used to explain latency. I could not recall the exact story, but if you're familiar with Greek mythology, with I think the Titans and the gods, how the Titans overruled the gods, no? Tama ba? Or is it the other way around? Parang the fathers were overthrown by their parents. Basta, hanapin niyo na sa Greek mythology yun. No? About how the gods, para hindi mangyari sa kanila yung ginawa nila sa mga tatay nila, they punished or repressed the sexual desires of their children. So pinasa daw yun through generations, which led to the phylogenetic endowment, which is used to explain latency. But basically, ayun, you have aim inhibited. Yung sexual desires, yun lang, the latency, naglalay low yung libido. And then, at the genital stage during puberty and onwards, bumabalik na. There's a reawakening of the sexual aim and the beginning of the genital period. Yung sexual energy mo directed na sa ibang tao. Now, penis envy for women may still be present, but girls now discover the power of vagina. Dito na na-formulate yung idea of womb envy naman. Sa mga lalaki daw, gusto nilang makuha. They have womb envy. Kaya nila gusto makipag-sex. Application of the psychoanalytic theory, we have transference and Freudian slips. Transference is when the patient develops feelings towards the therapist. No, ano nangyayari din is parang ina-identify nung client, ng patient, as the mother or father niya yung therapist niya. So it may be positive and negative feelings, no? And this is very useful when dealing in therapy, no? This should be addressed during therapy. That the therapist should not be viewed as as the mother, father, or whatever. Freudian slips would be the slips of the tongue, while the parapraxis naman are similar, but instead of words, ito yung actions, no? So sinasabi dito yung mga slips of the tongue mo daw. For example, tinanong ka, sinong mahal mo? Instead of saying yung pangalan ng partner mo, you said a random name unexpectedly. Like a name of a friend or whoever. Hindi daw yun accident for psychoanalytic theory. May unconscious desire daw yon. Same with the parapraxis. For example, you're playing badminton and then you accidentally hit the shuttlecock sa random person, no? Hindi lang daw yung random or accidental. Sinasabi daw doon na parang gusto mo talaga siyang tamaan kaya mo sinasadya mo yon, no? Unconsciously you have this motive or desire to be aggressive towards that person. That's why tinamaan mo siya or that's why you hit the person. For dreams are said to be the royal road, the unconscious. So this has access, no, to the unconscious. And it may be manifest or latent, yung content niya, no? Pag manifest content, this is simply saying na yung surface meaning, it is as it is, as interpreted or as described by the dreamer. By latent content refers to the unconscious and yung deeper meaning that is not always discovered, no? So, dreams are formed in the unconscious. So the unconscious tries to seeing it, yung mga impulses, and bring it to the conscious level through condensation and displacement. So for example, the impulse or the desire to have sex with your mother. So instead of you dreaming of having sex with your mother, which is messed up, no? Ang mapapaniginipan mo is just a simple wet dream, sexual desire. So condensation yon. Pinaikli mo lang. You remove the mother in the picture. And it's possible that you displace it. Now, instead of you dreaming of having sex with with your mother, ang napaniginipan mo is you having sexual activities with, let's say, your teacher. So your teacher now becomes a symbol of your mother because of the authority. So through condensation and displacement, bring up yung mga unconscious impulses to the conscious level without it being or destroying the ego, being destructive to the ego. Okay? Quick evaluation or views of humanity. Biological in the sense of the phylogenetic endowment, as well as stages of development niya. Okay? Now let's move on to the next theory. Individual psychology of Alfred Adler. Should not confuse this with the psychology of the individual. It's different. Quick biography. Tandaan nyo lang na sobrang sakitin niya ng bata. He almost died of leukemia. And he has an older brother, ironically named Sigmund. Yeah. Kapangalan ni Freud. He was interested in social relationships, and his siblings and peers played a pivotal role in his childhood development. So, yun lang. Tandaan niyo na masakitin siya. He lived in the shadows of his brother. Yun. This you have to remember, no? The 6 basic principles or tenets of Adler. First is that the dynamic force behind people's behaviors is striving for success or superiority. For Freud, it is sex and aggression. For Adler, it is striving for success or superiority. Okay? People's subjective perceptions shape their behavior and personality is unified and self-consistent because of the style of life. Every activity must be viewed through social interest, and that style of life is molded by people's creative power. Now let's discuss this one by one. Striving for success or superiority. Now, lahat naman daw tayo pinanganak na inferior. Wala naman sigurong infant na superior na kaya niyang self-sustaining. Lahat naman kailangan ng aruga. So, feelings that motivate a person to strive for either superiority or success. So, because of these feelings of inferiority, we may respond by striving for either superiority or success. For psychologically unhealthy people, mas pinipili nila yung personal superiority, while for the psychologically healthy people, it's the other. No? Mas gusto nila yung success of all humanity and not just for themselves. Now we have what we call the final goal. The final goal is fictional and has no objective existence. So this is the product of the creative power, and at age 4 to 5, medyo developed na daw siya according to Adler. Now, if you ask ng bata, ano ba ang gusto mo pagtanda mo? They would say doctor, architect, engineer, etc., etc. So but at that point, they already have a goal that they set for themselves. And it is said that every action that they do, lahat ng gawin nila is done to accomplish or to fulfill that goal. Even yung pagkain nila, yung pagpasok nila sa school, etc., etc., it is oriented to achieve the final goal. Kaya nga, if we evaluate the theory, it's leaning towards teleology. Subjective perceptions, we have fictionalism or fictional final goals. So the future is not yet true, but it is true for you. Fictions are not real, but it influences how we behave. So people are not motivated by what is true, but rather what they believe or what they construe or what they perceive to be true. Let's say men are superior than women. That's a fiction. And yet, we live in a patriarchal society wherein actions reflect that fiction. Another example given by Adler's God. For Adler, God is a fiction, and yet our actions are heavily affected by the fiction of God. Next would be physical inferiorities. So, physical inferiorities do not cause a particular style of life. Hindi porket kunyari, lumpo ka, magiging pessimistic ka na, no? No, it's not like that. They just simply provide present motivation for reaching future goals. Now, what is organ dialect? It is said to be the ultimate language because it speaks a language which is usually more expressive than what is being said. No? Kung ano yung hindi mo masabi verbally, sinasabi ng katawan mo. For example, sumasakit yung katawan mo. Ma-pride kang tao at work, but then your body hurts. Or for example, nagkasakit ka, nagkasakit ka. It is your body's way of telling that you need help and that you need others. Another example is an infant peeing on the bed. It's possible that yung pagpee ng bata sa bed is a sign of aggression towards the parents. So the organ dialect is your body's way of speaking, of communicating with others. So the expression of a person's underlying intentions or style of life through a disease or dysfunctional body organ. Ayan, sa pag-ihi or sa nakaramdam ka ng sakit. Conscious and the unconscious. So kanina diniscuss natin na the conscious is that are the things or elements that we are aware of at any given point of time. Iba yung definition ni Adler for the conscious versus the unconscious. So for the conscious, this would be the things that are regarded to be helpful in striving for success, while those things that are unconscious are those that are not helpful. conscious, helpful, unconscious, not helpful. And those things that we fail to understand falls into the unconscious. Kung ano hindi mo maintindihan, that's the unconscious. He's very famous with the concept of social interest or Gemeinschaftsgefühl. Good luck with the spelling. Okay. So this would be feeling of oneness with all humanity and implies membership in the social community of all people. Community feeling or a sense of feeling at one with all humans. Now, it is said that bata pa lang daw, nade-develop na yung social interest sa mother-child relationships during infancy. Now, you may ask, paano po yung mga iniwan na bata, yung mga hindi inaruga? Well, they were still able to experience some level of social interest kasi nakasurvive sila up to this point. Someone took care of them, whether it was maliit, hindi ganun kaaruga, hindi ganun inalagaan. When infants pa sila, bottom line, may nag-alaga pa din sa kanila, kahit hindi yung nanay nila. So they could have experienced some form of social interest and develop social interest as well. Style of life naman would be the flavor of a person's life. So this would include a person's goals and concepts, attitude towards the world. Yan, pag samasamahin mo, that would be the style of life. It is the product of interaction of heredity, environment, and a person's creative power. Now, the three major problems of life, according to Adler, would be neighborly love, sexual love, occupation. And as lang naman yung definition niyan. Now, I think this is not priced, so it would be good that you take note of this. So this would be the how people adapt and deal with the three major problems. And if you look at it, it's fairly similar with Horney's trends, which we'll discuss later on. So for the dominant ruling type, ito yung mga walang masyadong social interest and walang pake sa ibang tao. They act according to their whim and have little regard for others. While the getting leaning type, ito yung mga dependent and very parasitic relationships na nade-develop nila. Avoiding type, they make no attempt to face problems. They are very uncooperative. And socially useful, it's the normal or what the normal analog. This would be the people who are able to cooperate, act in accordance with their needs, and copes well in life. So abnormal development, as I mentioned a while ago, human activity should be viewed, or rather, viewed through the lens of social interest. Pag mababa daw ang social interest mo, you have underdeveloped social interest, that results to maladjustments. For neurotics tend to set their goals too high, live in their own private world, and have a rigid, dogmatic style of life. Now, what are the external factors in maladjustment? First would be the exaggerated physical deficiencies, wherein they overcompensate for their inadequacies. Next would be the pampered style of life, pag masyadong binaby ng bata, na lahat ng gusto, konting iyak lang, iaabot na. Now, later on in life, they would have parasitic relationships because they would expect that all of the things that they need would be satisfied by other people. They believe that they are entitled and nagkakaroon ng sense of entitlement. Yung spoiled brat. While neglected style of life naman, ito yung mga hindi masyadong naaruga. They become more suspicious and more likely to be dangerous to others. For Freud, we have defense mechanisms. For Adler, we have safeguarding tendencies. Now, safeguarding tendencies is similar with Freud's defense mechanisms, Ang difference lang is it's largely conscious for Adler. Tapos lahat naman daw tayo meron nito and gumagamit nito. It is only when it becomes very rigid and palagi na lang ginagamit that it becomes self-defeating. So the purpose of safeguarding tendencies is very similar with defense mechanisms because it enables the person to hide their inflated self-image and to maintain their current style of life. Bali, in times of stressful and anxiety-provoking situations, ginagamit yung safeguarding tendencies, to maintain yung inflated self-image nila para hindi masira yung ego, kumbaga. And you could easily remember this three by just simply saying way or way or oh. So excuses would be as is, excuses, yung mga reasons. Now, you give excuses to make yourself feel good na sinasabi mo na kunyari, you were asked to do something but you didn't or you weren't able to and you gave excuses. Now, the excuses allows you to think that you could have done it and hindi ka masyadong magigilty or madidisappoint sa sarili mo because you had excuses to back yourself up. Aggression naman could be divided into three: depreciation, accusation, and self-accusation. Depreciation is when you belittle the works of others. Accusation is sa iba. Self-accusation is directed towards the self. Withdrawal would be moving back, standing still, hesitating, and constructing obstacles. So, ito naman yung mga safeguarding tendencies naman, yung definitions niya is as is, kung ano yung tawag sa kanya, more or less, yun na yun. So, moving backward could be likened to regression, standing still could be likened to fixation, hesitating, you simply hesitate. While constructing obstacles is when you build challenges or obstacles instead of doing what you need to do, so that when you fail to do what you need to do, you have excuses. So, medyo related siya sa excuses. No? For example, you need to write your paper. But instead of writing your paper, may inuna ka mo ng ibang trabaho. Now, tas hindi mo na-meet yung deadline mo for your paper, you could simply say that, because I had other things to do. So that's constructing obstacles. The masculine protest naman. For Freud kasi he believed that anatomy is destiny. While for Adler, he focused more on culture. And for him, it's not anatomy that influenced men and women to overemphasize the importance of being manly. So masculine protest is putting too much emphasis on being manly. It should not be confused or attributed to Horney, because Horney, feminine psychology siya. She simply agreed with Adler. So yung masculine protest, that's Adler. Feminine psychology, that is Horney's. Early recollections. One thing that you notice, try to do this with others. Kung ano yung mood nila, yung current situation nila, it is reflected sa recollections nila. So, if you ask someone to recall their first memory, their current mood affects their recollection. So, early recollections are not always consistent. Early recollections are always consistent with people's present style of life, and that their subjective account of these experiences yields clues to understanding both their final goal and the present style of life. This, I suggest that you memorize, familiarize, and understand. Now, it's not that difficult naman. Yung family constellations. Kasi I'm willing to bet that this would go out sa board exams. So, okay. It's easy to recall if you apply it. Tingnan nyo yung sarili nyo, yung mga kapatid nyo, and just simply describe them and yourself. Para mas madali nyo siya maintindihan. No? You apply it sa buhay nyo. For the eldest, no, sinasabi na highly anxious and exaggerated feelings of power kasi for a long time or for a period of time, he or she is the only child. And nung nagkaanak na, nasundan na siya, it's possible that he or she may feel like he has been dethroned kasi may sumunod na sa kanya. While for the second child, particularly for the middle child, they might be highly competitive. Tandaan nyo lang yung middle child syndrome. For the youngest child naman, for the second child, it's possible that they compete kasi for attention. Dahil minsan, pag nasa gitna sila, ang focus is either on the adult, the eldest, or the youngest sa bunso. Kaya nagiging competitive sila. For the youngest, typically ito yung mga binubunso, bini-baby, sheltered. That's why they end up being dependent. No, they want to excel in everything and often they could be unrealistically ambitious. So this has the positive side and the negative side then. For the only child naman, you could notice that sila yung mas madaling mag-mature. Why? Because they do not have anyone, or rather they have limited interactions with people of their same age. Madalas yan yung mga tita, ninong yung kasama na since wala silang kapatid, no? Nagmamature sila na mas mabilis. That's why socially mature sila compared with others who have other siblings. An inflated sense of self kasi sa kanila lang yung focus. And they may also have a pampered style of life. Kasi, ayun, since only child, kunyari, unika iha, no, binibigay lahat. So, it would be nice if you familiarize yourself and learn how to apply the family constellations. No. Concept of humanity. Ayan. For you to easily remember and for you to easily compare and contrast Freud and Adler, it's typically opposite direction sila. Except for the conscious versus unconscious. So, for Freud, determinism, for Adler, free choice. So, mag-opposite pole sila. Kasi if you recall, very magkaaway sila, di ba? They had heated debate. Hindi sila magkasundo. Yeah. Quick review. Pause for a bit. Pause the video and answer the question. Okay. Now I shall proceed with analytical psychology of Carl Jung. Quick biography lang. He had a very religious background. Yung lolo niya, father niya were pastors. That's why his theory is very nagfo-fall sa mysticism, spiritual, and yung theory niya very patok sa mga spiritual or sa mga religious. He also had what we call number 1 and number 2 personality, which he used to justify yung pangangaliwa niya. Sabi niya daw yung parang number 1 personality niya belongs to Emma Hume, but there's a part of him, his number 2 personality, na parang hindi masatisfy ni Emma Hume. That's why he needed Tony Wolff, which is a patient of his, and ginamit niya yung counter-transference to justify this relationship. Kung gusto niyo mangaliwa, gayahin niyo si Jung. Sabihin niyo may number 1 and number 2 personality kayo. Okay. Now, what is analytical psychology ba? So, it is usually identified as part of the psychodynamic theories or psychoanalytical theory because similar to the psychodynamic and psychoanalytic theories, it has big emphasis on the unconscious processes, but particularly on the occult phenomena, how these phenomena influence the lives of everyone. Kaya di ba may mga occult phenomena, say mga anima, animus, shadow, wise old man, mga archetypes. Now, people are mainly motivated by repressed experiences and cumulative experiences. Cumulative experiences, aka collective unconscious. And the objective of analytical psychology is self-realization or individuation. Each theorist has their own concept of the ideal person or the ideal human. For analytical psychology, for Carl Jung, it is self-realized. For Maslow, it is transcendence. For Rogers, self-actualized. Okay, analytical psychology. For ego, it is the center of the consciousness. Diba kay Freud, center of personality or core of personality. For Adler, for Jung rather, it is the center of consciousness. The core of personality for Jung is the self, and it is largely unconscious. Levels of the psyche. We have three, no? Conscious, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. Conscious, everything that is sensed by the ego, since the ego is the center of consciousness. Personal unconscious, ito yung mga repressed, forgotten, or subliminally perceived experiences of one particular individual. Dito matatagpuan yung complexes, a conglomeration of feelings, so organized groups of feelings, thoughts, perceptions, and memories, which may be personal or at a collective level. Bigay tayo example. Mother complex. When you say mother, you already have an idea of what a mother is, what a mother is like, based on the previous experiences passed on from generation to generation. But you also have an idea of what a mother is and what a mother does and the feelings associated with a mother based on your personal experience of your own mother. Okay? Now, if you have difficulty understanding complexes, just try to remember yung term na triggered. Why? Because complexes is believed to block the flow of thought of a person because of the associated feelings, no, and thoughts with that word. No? Why triggered? Sige, example natin. Pag sinabi ko X, ayan, may magre-react dyan na parang you already have an idea unless NBSB ka, no? na triggered, na you reacted in a particular manner, na pa-stop ka, na pa-react ka, because there are thoughts and feelings that came up when I said the word X. Now, for you to uncover daw complexes, dito na pumapasok yung word association ni Carl Jung. Dito yung nagsasabi siya ng words and how fast would you react to the word. So if you take a long time to react to a particular word, maybe there's something associated with that. Maybe there's a complex right there. Now, the collective unconscious, dito naman pumapasok yung mga archetypes, yung mga experiences of ancestral past of the entire species. And we have, actually marami yan, no? But let's just focus on what was discussed in FICE. Now, we have the persona. As we mentioned in our introduction, persona means mask. Ito yung pinapakita mo sa ibang tao. Shadow naman would be the first test of courage. This would be qualities that we do not wish to acknowledge, the dark side. The anima, feeling side of men. Animus, the thinking side of women. So the anima is the emotions. yung babae sa lalaki. While the animus is the logical side, yung lalaki sa babae. The great mother, which is life or destruction, is often represented in our dreams and folklores as water, because water gives life, and at the same time you can drown in water, which is death. Pwede ring fire, because fire gives light. At the same time, pwede siyang mag-destroy. Pwede rin yung witch. Wise old man represents wisdom, pre-existing knowledge about the mysteries of life. At yung wise old man, pwede siyang represented as wizard. Hero naman would always have a tragic flaw. So, tandaan niyo yung si Achilles and his heel. Seth naman would be is said to be the archetypes of archetypes. Unites all the archetypes and the conscious and the unconscious mind. And ito yung mandala, represented by the mandala or the yin-yang. That's one example. Sa mga Buddhist, yung mga bilog na parang patterns. Now, progression and regression. Progression, simply put, would be the flow of psychic energy outward, and regression would be flow of psychic energy inward or backward. Now, why is this important? It's important when discussing extroversion and introversion. When people focus on the outer world, it is said to be leaning towards extroversion. Introversion naman, inner world. Pag extroversion, objective. Pag introversion, subjective. So these are the attitudes. How a person focuses his or her attention. For the functions, we have irrational functions and rational functions. So the way a person gathers information be either through sensing or intuition. Pag sinabi mong senses, literally, the use of the senses. Intuition is knowing without knowing, future-oriented, with a view toward patterns and possibilities. While for the rational function, this would be reasoning, judgment, abstraction, and generalization. This is how people make decisions. Is it through thinking or logic? Or is it through feeling, yung value attached? No? So values and subjective evaluation of a person-centered concerns. Now, for the judging and perceiving naman, yun yung sa additional sa MBTI, kay Myers-Briggs, if you're familiar with that. Stages of development. Let's just read through this one. Have you watched Inside Out? If you remember the islands of consciousness. No? So, during anarchic phase, during childhood, hindi pa daw buo-buo yung islands of consciousness. And hindi pa masyadong develop yung ego. It's only during the monarchic phase wherein the ego starts to develop and the islands of consciousness dun pa lang nabubuo. And you could notice that nasa monarchic phase na daw yung child if kaya niya na mag-isip in a logical and verbal manner. And at this phase, third person magsalita, yung infant or yung bata. Dualistic phase, meron ng objective and subjective, and first person na magsalita. For the youth, sinasabi ni Jung na important tong stage na to because there should be an increase in socialization, a flow of psychic energy outwards. Now, with the growing consciousness and recognition that the problem-free era of childhood is gone forever, kaya nagkakaroon ng conservative principle. Kasi if you look at this image, no, kumbaga, in a setting sun, so from childhood, yung sunrise, youth, pataas, and then, pagdating ng pagdulo ng youth, pababa na siya. So yung mga problem-free era of childhood na-realize nila na time to adult na. It's adulting time already. That's why nagkakaroon ng conservative principle. It's when they try to cling on to their youth. Kaya when you notice during midlife, yung mga nagkakaroon ng midlife crisis, they don't seem to act their age. No? So, increasing anxieties and period of tremendous potential because papasok na ang old age. Yung believed, as similar with Freud, no, na death is the goal of life and that life can be fulfilling only when death is seen in this life. Hindi naman ibig sabihin nito na magpapakamatay ka na lang, no? It is when you're able to accept that life ends. Doon mo palang to truly realize yung meaning ng life. Excuse me. Now, in self-realization or individuation, this would be the process of becoming an individual or a whole person. So first, you have to go through the first test of courage, which is to overcome the shadow. Next would be to embrace the anima and animus, the aggression-progression, and then you should allow the unconscious self to become the core of personality. Diba? We have the self and the persona. Sabi dito na wag mong masyadong gamitin yung persona, but rather the self, the unity of all the archetypes. And then, balance of all aspects of personality with introversion and extroversion. Now, applications. As I mentioned, countertransference, which used to justify yung mga pangangaliwa niya in his relationship with his client, no, with Tony Wolff. So this term is used to describe therapist feelings towards the patient. So transference, feelings of the therapy, the client towards the therapist. Countertransference would be feelings developed by the therapist towards the patient. And again, word association, standardized stimuli in psychological testing to discover the character of specific individuals, and it's used to discover complexes. Okay. For concept of humanity, ayan. Kung opposite poles, si Freud at saka si Adler, si Jung naman yung nasa gitna. Yun lang yun, para madali niyong matandaan. Now, that would be the end of part 1. Thank you for listening and for watching. Sana may natutunan. No. Sana, I hope that the discussion was clear. And if you have any questions, well, you may reach me through my email. Pinasan ko ba? Yeah, you have my email. Okay, I will see you again for the part 2 of the video. Thank you and good luck.